This conference will now be recorded.
All right, got us going, so I will call the meeting to order for the Bicycle Pedestrian Committee. Roll call, please,
Tracy Kuki.
Here.
Kyle Jago.
Here.
Dale Schmitz.
Here.
Kim Shanna. Here. Sharon Cowell. Here. And Leroy Goet and Jessica Atkinson are excused.
All right, thank you. We stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, and I need a motion, action on the agenda. You know, we want to approve that, or if there's any changes we'd like to make on the agenda.
The only thing I question, I may have read this wrong, but it looked like in the last minutes we had talked about, it said something about bringing back, let's see, 8B. What was it? Something about the motorized bikes, and
Yes.
we're going to bring back information. Maybe.
Electric personal assisted devices was the thing that maybe you're talking about.
Yeah.
We talked about in the last meeting. And maybe, I know staff is gonna look into that, maybe we just didn't get there yet.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, in regards to that, we'll be bringing something forward at some point. We just haven't kind of rallied ourselves.
It's fine.
Yeah. And then we did receive some information from the DNR as it relates to the use of electric bikes on trails that were funded through like stewardship funds and such. So
Their second opinion was opposite of their first opinion.
yeah. So that's kind of allows us the opportunity to say, maybe we need to look at this a little differently.
Yeah.
I just know we'll get questions because I've had people ask me a question because
Yeah.
The bottom line is it's allowable on the trails that we have. Depends on where the funding came from.
Oh, yeah,
The DNR gets different types of funding, but the trails that we have, those e-bikes are allowed.
Okay. Any other questions or a motion to approve the agenda is in order?
I'll motion to approve it.
Motion by Dale,
I'll second it.
second by Kyle. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. Action on the minutes from the October 9th Bicycle Pedestrian Committee. My voice is really dead, so I'll start to lose it towards the end of the meeting. I may have someone else take over, so thank you.
We'll get you a shot.
Yeah. Any changes or questions on the minutes from October 9th?
I didn't see anything when I read it.
I would welcome a motion if somebody.
I'll motion to approve.
Motion by Dale,
Second.
second by Kim. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 6 is comments from the public. The comments must be limited to items that are not on our agenda. You must state your name and your address, limited to 5 minutes. Board's rule is to listen and not discuss the item. Personnel issues cannot be discussed nor individuals named, and board is not able to take action at this meeting. Are there any comments from the public? If so, please come up, state your name, and give us your comments, please. Thank you.
Where would you like me to go?
Stand there, come here, whichever you prefer.
All right, thanks. Yeah, my name is Scott Kwan, 1560 Waterford Court. I've been a resident of Ashwaubenon since 1977. And I just wanted to discuss a traffic pedestrian situation that occurred with me a few weeks ago. I have 2 sons going through the entire school system here in Ashwaubenon, and now I have a grandson who's a freshman in high school. And I take him to school almost every day. And we come down that street, we turn left on Anderson, go up the hill there, and then I drop him off behind the high school, and then I turn around and come back down Anderson Drive. The nursing home's on the right when I'm returning, the high school's on the left. And I was driving down the road one day, and it's 50-mile-an-hour speed limit in there. I think public safety does a really nice job of enforcing that, and that really makes a difference. There's 1, sometimes 2 police officers on Anderson. There's so much vehicular and pedestrian traffic around there just before school. It's just a beehive of activity, and I think it's really great that it's being enforced. However, I was coming down Anderson and I saw there's a bus stop there. And I saw the bus on the right-hand side and I just had a bad feeling about that. So I thought, because I couldn't see in front of the bus. And I know there's a crosswalk there. So I stopped, right? I just carefully stopped in the road next to the bus. And as soon as I stopped, a young girl came zooming out in front of my car. And I just know there's no way I would have ever been able to react if I had stopped, even going 15 miles an hour. 50-mile-an-hour speed limit is really good, but it isn't going to avoid something like that from happening. I was in shape. I spoke with Dirk Rivens about it too later on, and he said, it's really bad as the school year goes on because there's more students driving with little or no experience and no sense of judgment because of that. So it's just it's a dangerous situation, and I don't know what can be done about it. I just wanted to bring that to your attention because that's a big blind spot for traffic going east down that hill. The bus was stopped there. I couldn't see any pedestrians, and this girl just shot out in front of me. And I just had the sense, I guess, from 60 years of driving this, to stop and just look. I'm glad I didn't because I knew I would have hit that girl.
So this is on Anderson or Willard?
It's on Anderson.
On Anderson, right where the traffic comes out in front of the field house?
Yeah, that's
that crosswalk right there?
There's a crosswalk there. And I think it's a crosswalk. It's right next to the nursing home and it crosses over. And this girl, by the way, she shot in front of me. She was waving to someone on the other side of the street, so she didn't even look. I mean, she had no sense of what, she was just waving to somebody. I stopped, and I know I would have hit her, because I just had a fraction of a second reaction. If I had been driving. Even going 15 miles an hour, it would not have made any difference. I would have gotten her. So I know it's going to happen again. Given enough time, it's going to happen again. So.
If I can ask, do you have a sense of why the bus was there, or why it was?
It's a bus stop.
Okay.
See, so yeah, the bus stops.
City bus. Stop.
City bus.
Oh, city bus.
It's a city bus. Yeah.
Okay.
And then the walkway is right in front of the bus. So there's a big blind spot for traffic going down the road. You can't see what's going on there. It's dangerous.
And Scott, just to clarify, the individual that you're speaking to was a pedestrian crossing the street that you had in your midst. You were in a vehicle.
Yeah, no, I didn't actually talk to anybody. I spoke with Dirk, the high school principal, about that later on.
No, I'm trying to picture what occurred based on your explanation. So somebody was trying to cross the street.
Right.
You were in your vehicle traveling 15 miles an hour.
But I actually stopped next to the bus because I couldn't see what was in front of the bus. Okay. So it was just intuition that made me stop. Okay. And I know I would have hit her if I hadn't stopped. So I know it's going to happen again, given enough time. Okay. So hopefully you're able to make some change in this.
So this was during the morning drop-off time.
Yeah, it's crazy busy there. It's just there's so much activity there.
Yeah.
So are we all, any discussion on this or later?
Really, there should be no discussion on it. If anything, we could ask staff to do some checking or reach out
or
to
if you have a
Joel.
question, like we had questions.
My question would be is, what's the timing of that bus stop? Is that a daily? I'm assuming it's Green Bay.
It's Green Bay Transit. It's part of their fixed route system.
It is.
I'm not exactly certain.
And I do know students take the bus to school.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. That's
Do you know if any students are coming on the bus?
That's what I was told.
I can see like blind spot that's located there, but that's cool. Yeah, we can certainly take a look at it and see, get some more information for the committee. Maybe it's a relocation of where that stop location is for the bus in relation to where the crosswalk is, because there's a crosswalk right there, as Scott had mentioned. So we can take a look at it and kind of report back our findings.
Okay. Or the internal committee, maybe that Ryan, are you in charge of the committee?
Yeah, I think someone will take a look at it and actually, looking at it on Brown Dog and then also on Google Earth. Yeah, I think that's worth certainly some further discussion.
Is there 2 bus stops on Anderson? There's one further closer to 190, isn't there?
I have to look. The eastbound bus stop is really, that's not a very good spot. I can understand why they might want to put it there, but that's not really a good spot. As far as westbound, I'm not sure what the westbound one is.
I thought there was one right before on the street too.
Yeah, I thought there's one on east, going eastbound towards 190.
In front of that strip mall.
Actually, there's one in the Bay Area.
Yeah, in front of that strip mall.
Right at, well, actually about a little bit further west. They're right at Bay Area Place is one there. So it'll be wherever Bay Area tees off by the stadium.
Scott, on behalf of the committee, I want to thank you. I mean,
Thank you
some
for your
people wouldn't take the
consideration.
time, but your concern is, I understand it, for
I just
sure.
know what's gonna
Those blind
happen.
spots.
Yeah, it is gonna happen.
Yep.
Enough time.
Yep.
So I just want that off my conscience.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
okay, thank you for your consideration.
Scott, do you have like an email or phone number?
Yeah.
If staff has any questions, maybe you could reach out to Joel or something with that, and then if they have any other questions for you.
I'm a retired dentist. I had a dental practice down here in the corner.
Yeah.
Now I'm doing things I'm driving my son to school.
You actually looked at my chief last night.
Oh,
I used to work for the city of Green Bay, Donnie Kramer.
oh, Donnie Kramer.
I
Yeah.
used to see you quite a bit. You
Oh,
were
she was a sweetheart.
you were her
Yeah.
favorite.
Yeah, Donnie was a sweetheart. I love that.
Thank you for coming,
Yeah,
Mr. Pine,
thank
we
you.
appreciate
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Any other questions for him, anything to add? Otherwise, is there anybody else that would like to speak anything that is not on the agenda? All right, then we'll move on to item 7. Reports and updates. Ashwaubenon Public Safety, you're listed first. So anything, Brian? And welcome back.
Thank you. As far as updates, we have a few things that have happened. Traffic grants are back up and running. So we had OWI task force here this weekend. I don't have the current numbers on that, but we'll also have OWI task force out on New Year's Eve in the village. So I'll have extra officer on for that one dedicated just to drunk driving enforcement. They get a staffing increase. We'll be adding a couple more bodies next year, kind of rounding out a few things administratively as well. We do have 2 vacancies right now. Unfortunately, one of our officers did not make it through their field training, so was resigned. But we are conducting a hiring process and looking to fill spots and be in good shape for 2024. We do have some traffic-related trainings that we've been doing. There is a program called Drug Recognition Expert, which is advanced training to detect impaired drivers that are impaired by things other than alcohol. We had one of our officers, the first in our department history, go through that training this fall. He was the top graduate in his class. He is now back on patrol. So hopefully we will get some very proactive OWI enforcement from him, especially with regards to drug impaired driving. And he's also going to be a department expert with regards to training other staff on how to more efficiently and effectively detect drug impaired drivers and build those cases as well. So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what we get out of that program. It's something new that we've never had before. But with the right officer in it, it can be an incredibly productive program and a good resource for us to have. Also next year, we will be looking to strengthen our speed enforcement efforts. We'll be sending a couple of our staff off to radar and LiDAR instructor so that we can do a little bit more proactive continuing training to increase our effectiveness with speed enforcement. And the officers that we're sending are a couple of our field training officers so we can do a little bit better effort with our newly hired officers to make sure that they are at the top of their game as part of the field training process, so that when they go out on their own, they are hopefully pretty proactive with regards to speed enforcement. So just trying to address a few things knowledge-wise, comfort-wise, and make ourselves more effective. Otherwise, the other programs such as, like I said, the grants, those continue on. Pretty fortunate to have some very proactive officers. They've been going out there being very proactive with not just OWI stops, but also drug interdiction stops as well too. And we're going to look to try to strengthen our training in that next year as well.
I have noticed officers out more when I'm out and about. There's more that are out there pulling people over a lot more. So that's good to see.
Yeah, we've hired some go-getters. So unfortunately, we're down a couple spots. We had a couple people not make it, but ones that are coming through, very highly motivated officers. So it's kind of exciting. I get to live vicariously through them, and it's fun.
That's a good thing.
So you said in the training, it was radar and?
Yep, radar and LiDAR. So we do speed enforcement with traffic radar and then also with laser speed enforcement. So there's some benefits to both. Radar, the nice benefit of that is you can utilize it while your squad car is moving. You know, so if you're driving down Cormier Road, for example, you've got somebody coming the other way, or driving down Anderson, somebody coming the other way, it will track your squad speed, and it will track the closing speed on the vehicle you're approaching, and then it will calculate the actual approach speed of that vehicle, the actual speed of that vehicle that you're closing on. That can be coming, going. You can also use it in stationary mode. The downside with radar is it puts out a phone, so it's not as selective. And that's where the training of the operator is key to make sure that you're tracking the right vehicle that you're actually looking at. Laser is nice. Laser is pretty pinpoint. So for example, one of my favorite spots is the turnaround on Ashwaubenon. You put it up, put the dot on the vehicle, pull the trigger, and it'll give you the speed of the vehicle. Downside with LiDAR is you have to use it from a stationary mode. So we do have both. And we do cycle out to get the newest technology for that as well. All of our squad cars, our patrol squad cars, are equipped with a moving radar unit, and then we have right now 4 LiDAR units or laser units that officers can check out and take out on the road with them.
Thank you, it's interesting.
Yeah, fun stuff. I enjoy that stuff.
Any other questions for Brian? Brian, anything else to add?
No, nothing else to add unless anybody else has anything that we should be taking a look at.
One thing I find interesting, Brian, even with all the flashing lights and all the things we have out at Titletown, I had my grandkids already a month ago, walked in turned the lights on, walked out, and the car went by me by about 2 feet. I mean, I always explain to them, you never leave here until you see those cars stop. So I assumed he was far enough out, he would stop. And I don't think he even realized it. I really don't. With all the work that we've done to make it obvious. And that's why it's so, I mean, education for the younger kids is so important. I don't know how you continue to do that. That's the hard part. They can do it through the school system. Kind of like Scott was just explaining. We've probably all been there where you got a blind spot, right? Because they're in front of that, crossing in front of that vehicle. Some of that is education to the pedestrian to be careful. I walk all the time over by this school, Pioneer. I see cars go through the stop sign all the time on Carroll. I do not. When I get to the cross and I have the right of way, I wait. And I always wave them on. But again, it's just because you're a pedestrian, you think you got the right of way. It's not worth taking on the car.
That is true, and that's actually what you're teaching your family is pretty good advice. Even though you have the right of way, you have legal right to the right of way, you don't actually have the right of way until any oncoming driver yields it to you.
Physically stop.
Legally they have to, but until they're actually physically yielding it to you, yeah, that's how you end up with bad outcomes.
Yeah, it was concerning because I mean, I'm literally, I wasn't from here to there, and he went by me as I'm walking through.
We try to do the best we can with that type of enforcement. We do have extra enforcements that we participate in here and there for pedestrian enforcement. Carroll, we have had some attention on Carroll periodically. We do get some citizen complaints about whether it be stop sign violations or speed violations, so we do try to give some attention there as well. Unfortunately, a lot of times it hasn't necessarily matched up where our presence is the same presence as violators, but it is on our radar, no pun intended. We do try to give some attention to Carroll because we have gotten some complaints there.
Well, when I'm there, it's important. You guys are actually your own school, which is where you need to be.
And we've been trying to do that. That's certainly been an issue of ours for the past year and a half. I think our officers have embraced that pretty well. We've gotten good feedback, and I'm pretty happy to, especially after our citizen comment here, pass on the feedback he had of those officers.
Yep. Thank you.
I think Alex is around every day.
He is, and actually,
I drop off and I see him almost every morning. So.
and we're gonna have a new one soon. Jeff is retiring in January, so we've got Officer Santa on deck. He'll start training here in about a week or so, and he'll be passing the torch here shortly.
Is he taking over the liaison officer spot?
Yeah, Santa is.
Everything?
Yep. So Jeff is gonna retire in January, first or second week of January, I believe. Yeah, and then Chris Sands will be taking over the high school.
Any other questions, anybody? Thank you for the update, Brian. Now We have our other Brian here.
Who's the
Public Works, the Public Works Brian.
All right, so real brief, you can see I do have a monthly update here. Lombardi Access Road in Brookwood, I'm not really going to get into the weeds of that too much because we have an agenda item that we can kind of talk in greater detail about that. Alton Station Trail, those who have been out there, it is paved. Pretty much complete. We do have some punch list items that we do have that we're tracking with the contractor. Ground's obviously froze, so we can only do a limited amount of work. But the contractor is aware that they will need to return to get some of that restoration work a little bit tidied up come spring. Industrial Park Trail reconditioning. The village engineer and myself will probably plan on going out in spring, working with Rex, just kind of get the scope of the project firmed up and likely included in our annual bill pay contract. So with that, that's all I have, unless anybody else has any further questions.
So everybody really appreciates that Alton Station work. It looks great. It looks great. And I think you might have turned on the lights on the bridge a little.
I didn't, but maybe Rex did.
Turn on the lights.
We did. Well, I didn't, because it's quite the system to figure out how to operate. It's almost like you gotta have a
Be a nuclear physicist. to
Oh,
figure it out.
yeah.
and
You gotta program it and you put it on a stick and then insert this. Anyway, it's just the actual
Stand on
programming
it.
of it. It's a bit of a challenge, but we did ask. Apparently, there's two modes. There's a bright mode and then like a low light type of mode. So I'm glad to hear that must have happened. It was mentioned. They're still working on some lighting, and then hopefully we'll get a new stick and be able to insert, and that will have different colors for the different holidays that are coming up then. So that it's not always the purplish, whitish glow that's there.
The good thing about the purple ones is that it's more dim. You know, it's a dimmer color, so. It's bright. It's bright. It's a bright bridge.
Yeah, you can definitely see it across the river. Looks nice.
It's
I got lots
a
of
beautiful
influence.
bridge. Yeah, and now you can put in all the seating on the bridge.
Yes. Yep. That just came in. I think we've got a trash can soon to be installed.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Are we going to be clearing the Alton Station Trail and or the bridge? Is that something that I know we had briefly talked about when we were talking about snow removal? We do the northern part of that trail. Are we going to continue?
Yeah,
I had a couple of people asking that.
Yeah, so we have intentions of trying to do the trail itself, the bridge. We are not able to. Rex's crew went through using our current equipment, kind of set up a little bit of a demo. And actually our current equipment will literally damage the bridge deck itself. I don't know if Rex, if you want to talk on behalf of it anymore, but.
Sure. I mean, we just took a pallet and we got a fair supply of extra boards. So we cut the boards to fit on the pallet and then ran the bristle brush over it because we figured that would be, but because there's still, even though it's a rotating brush that looks like it's bristles, there's still steel bristles incorporated into it. And that was chewing it up. Yeah. So
So I think the plan is to bring it, maintain it out to Broadway. So
Correct.
it'll be connected to the sidewalk. We'll
Yeah.
still be able to do a loop, we just won't be able to cross
Across the bridge. Okay, so the trail in Alden will be done this year. Or
it's not like we're
continued
closing the
and then
bridge. I see a lot of footprints on it.
Right, I'm sure people will go across, yeah.
Use at your own risk.
Okay, great. Thank you. All
We
right.
made it so that there's about 4 inches, so that hopefully if it's a lighter snow, it can blow through it. I think the challenge will be when it's a wet snow. It's the wet snow that's going to stick to the bridge.
All right, Brian, nothing else then? Anybody have questions, other questions for Brian? Otherwise we'll go on to Rex. Park and Rec?
I don't have a lot. I just got a map actually this morning, I believe, from Grafe. They are planning the route for the Ashwaubenon River Trail extension. That's around Ashwaubenon Park, plus the stub that will go to the property line, which will eventually be picked up by Brown County and go into the fairground. So they've got a proposed map that they sent me, which will be going to Park Board actually in January for final approval. But basically it starts at where the trailhead is, goes around or behind Ashwaubenon Lake, somewhat along the fence line on the southern part of the park, in front of the new maintenance building, and then connects into the future, or the old boat launch / future kayak launch area. So we got that going on.
Anything else, sir?
No.
I just have a quick report from Wello. Natalie is, of course, sick like everybody else and their brother, bronchitis and something else. So, and Kyle, please add anything into it. We had our active community meeting last week that we went to. Basically, what I wanted us to relay here is the Frogger results from the last 2 years of Frogger. Frogger, which is that crosswalk thing that they do throughout the area. The compliance rate between 2022 and 23. 2022, it was 79% compliance is what they ended up with. In 2023, they're up to 88%. So we were talking a little bit just a minute ago with Scott about, someone crossing over and you up by the Titletown area with that crosswalk there. So what they have found in all the Frogger activities that they've been doing, that compliance is going up. So people are starting to at least get it a little bit, by it's moving up. So we still need to do some education. We still need to educate the motorists. We need to educate the pedestrians, because the pedestrians also have to make it clear that they want to cross too. And, hopefully teach them what to do too. They had 32 locations that were done in 2023. Ashwaubenon was not able to participate in the fall of 2023. Hopefully they will be back in 2024. Like I said, it seems like it's working. In 2024, Wello is going to be offering training sessions again to the officers. And they're also going to have some signs, some some bumper stickers, magnets and stuff that they're going to have out to help with the education of the Frogger event and encouraging people to cross safely.
And I think the magnets were to go on police cars.
Yeah. So they did them for Green Bay. They really liked them. And then I said, well, what about the other departments? Can they get magnets too? So they're working on getting magnets from the other police cars as well. The other thing that was exciting is the Green Bay Fire Department is going to be a member as well. They're like, we're the ones that come out when there's that crash or when someone gets hit. We're responding. So they wanted to get involved in Frogger as well. So they're going to be part of the Frogger starting in 2024 as well. The other thing that Wello talked about doing is trying to seek volunteers to help the day of the events, because it's very difficult, and maybe Ryan can address this a little bit, for the officers to keep track of who the number that are yielding, the number that they're stopping, who they're giving tickets to, maybe giving tickets to and warnings. They can keep track of that easier, but it's hard for them to watch all of that. So Wello is going to be reaching out maybe in 2024 to encourage people to volunteer to come to the sites and when the activity is going on to keep track of that. And there probably would be a short training session again for them to know what to look for, how to tally it, what to do. So that's something that they were trying to look at in 2024 to see if that would help and maybe help the departments a little bit with some of the data and keeping track of it.
Yeah, I guess the feeling was that police officers working the site have enough things to try to keep track of. It doesn't take a trained police officer to know whether somebody stopped or not. So if you just got a volunteer and said, 10 cars stopped, 2 didn't, 12 cars, so just somebody to tally that, just to take some of the paperwork, the busy work off of the police department.
No, I think that'd be very helpful. Yeah, good opportunity for collaboration with that too.
Yeah. So I know in Green Bay they've been doing that. Their planners been out there tallying things, and it's much easier for the officers, and they can do their job, and they're not worrying about trying to keep track of that. So, and we may come back to this committee, so you guys just keep it in mind. Maybe someone from this committee or from this committee might want to go out and help out and do the tallying for the Ashwaubenon sites, just to help out a little bit. So
you talked about education.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't had anybody at the meetings from the school system for quite some time.
No, Dirk did resign or did step back, but he said if there's anything that we want him to come for, he will come and be engaged. In fact, Scott had mentioned to me that he talked to Dirk about it, and he did mention it today as well. And I asked him to reach out to Dirk to see if he could come today, because it's kind of a school issue as well. And I'm sure this time of year is a little busy. I don't maybe just couldn't get here. But if there is things, we can certainly reach out to him, because he said he would come.
Well, I'm more interested in is not necessarily Dirk. So we have liaison officers. Do they have an opportunity to to speak to students, or is it
The
just,
liaison
or
officers?
is it just pretty much there's a need?
There's a PubMed component of it. We also do have staff that has helped out with impact team driving in the past. I think one of the difficult things with the school though is carving out the time to do certain programs like that. From my understanding, they're pretty tight on curriculum time with what they have. So that's why it's a little bit of an issue as well.
Yeah, I mean, they used to do it in gym class, PE, and they don't do that anymore because again, they're tight on time for that. They used to do it in different segments, but they just don't seem to do that anymore. They're really tight on what they have to do. So they just don't seem to get it, which is unfortunate, you know. So I think the education part of it is a big deal and it's just not getting out there. But that's all from Wello, unless Kyle, is there anything else that's what I had more of the Frogger?
Yeah, that was pretty much it.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. So yeah, that's it from Wello and
Tracy, did she email you that information? Or was that
I
just
will
your
get
notes?
it to. I'm trying. I'll get you something. I'll get you the info. I don't think she emailed me all of that. I think
Okay,
it's just
no
my
problem
notes from the
then.
meeting.
Okay, no problem.
I'll just get you what I have, Kelly.
Thought I'd ask.
Yeah, it's easier.
Like to have it in writing in
Yeah,
front of me. Yep,
yeah.
thank you.
Okay, I'll get info to you. All right. Okay, so if nothing else with reports and updates, we will continue on. Items for discussion and possible action. Item 8A is the 2024 bicycle and pedestrian project list. I had asked staff just to put this on the agenda because the 2024 budget did include a lot of bicycle pedestrian improvements for the community, and I just wanted them to go through them and explain kind of what they were and what our involvement would be and how, you know, just so we're aware of them and maybe there's something that we would like to weigh in on, but really just kind of to update. We had a lot of good projects that did get through the budget this year, and we'll do some nice things for bicycle and pedestrians and make it safer and easier for people to drive through our community as well. So it looks like, Brian, you had put this together, but Rex, Joel, anyone that wants to add to it, please feel free.
Yeah, I can walk through it quickly. If you guys have any questions, just chime in. Sidewalk installation on Brookwood and Lombardi Access Road. We've spoken about that before. I can talk about it in greater detail, but we do have an agenda item that will kind of talk about the project itself and its scope. So, industrial park trail reconditioning, as you're aware, that trail itself is it's parallels the waterway. There is portions of it that are getting to the end of their usable life. Trail kind of starts at Main Ave and then terminates at Wabi. Looking at just pulverizing that trail and then repaving it, much like you guys may be familiar with, similar treatment that we use on our roadways. We're also working on, Rex is working on the design of the Ashwaubenon River Trail extension. He had just touched on that a little bit earlier in the meeting. We're also working with McMahon for the West Main Ave Trail extension. So right now that trail terminates at Ridge, but we're looking to push it to the east, out towards essentially De Pere, the De Pere roundabout. Next one is the design for the.
I just want to click on that West Main Trail extension. So right now it comes down Sand Acres and then dead ends at West Main. So are you talking about extending then to the west towards, or am I going the wrong direction?
To the east. So we would go in from Ridge to the east. So right now that trail's on the south side.
No, I'm on the wrong, I'm going too far south. I got it. Okay, I'm at Grant, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
heading down towards the roundabout.
Correct.
In De Pere. Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Yep, no problem. Let's see here. So touched on the design for the trail extension at Argonne Park. That's a project that Rex is working on. Traffic signal controller replacement. So right now, all of our traffic signals, they essentially are, believe it or not, they're almost like a computer. That kind of just determines when, what leg of the intersection gets a green, which one gets an arrow, just based on inputs that traffic signal receives. Right now, majority of them have been installed in approximately 1980, early 1990s. They're well beyond the end of their service life. As you can assume, you can't get parts for them anymore. You can't fix them. So What you see out there, ultimately, we had one of our traffic signal cabinets hit at Armed Forces at Holmgren, and we just keep our fingers crossed that we can reach out to a different municipality, hoping they kind of have a boneyard of parts that we can use. And we've been lucky to be able to scrap stuff together in order to get it to work. But this project itself will begin to start replacing. We're hoping to get 3 intersections done. The village itself has 11 intersections that it owns, the traffic controller for. So it's a project that we'll be working on a little bit every year. Along with that, we have a laundry list of push buttons and countdown timers, which are kind of the pedestrian side of a traffic signal. And we have a decent portion that are non-operational, and some of the ones that are operational, they are wore out. So with that, we're looking to take that list, get everything replaced, and make things so that they are more pedestrian friendly and they work as they were originally designed. Along with that, the county is working on the design for the pedestrian accommodations for the roundabout at Packerland and Grant. That project itself isn't planned until 2026, but they start working on design a couple years in advance. So with that, that's all I have, unless anybody has some questions.
It's exciting to be on there. Wow.
A lot of work.
I have a couple
Okay.
questions, Brian, real quick.
Yeah.
One of the things that this committee was really involved in was the whole intersection survey that was done, and that kind of set up, well, this is an area that maybe needs a push button, this is that needs a crosswalk extension or whatever. So we went through all of that and kind of did a survey of that. So obviously, I was just passing on that Typeco thing that you've given me. And Tapco is a company, if you can maybe explain, they repair.
Yeah, so Tapco is essentially the company that not only do they do repairs, but they also provide, anything from the push buttons to the actual traffic lights themselves. They're based out of Milwaukee, but they also do have the ability to, do the repairs. So their main focus is actually on like mid-block crossing items, which would be or rapid flashing beacons or Hawk, which is a Hawk is similar to what you see at Ridge by Titletown. Rapid flashing beacon, an example of that would be at like Cormier and Shady, or Cormier and Santa Barbara, where you push a button and the lights flash. So the intersection itself is just a two-way stop with stop signs, no stop lights. But essentially they're a company that they can also go through and kind of perform a review on each one of your traffic signals and determine what's wrong with them. They may appear to the normal motors that they're fully operational, but until you actually dig into the pedestrian side of it, you can figure out that, there's detectors that sometimes, that cameras that detect pedestrians, or there's push buttons that may or may not work. So even though you push it and it chirps at you, doesn't necessarily mean that it's sending that signal back to the computer to tell the computer what to do. So they essentially went through and they kind of created a list of items that, aren't operational, that a lot of times people think that the signal is working as it should, but it's not.
Like Brian said, we have 11 intersections that are ours that we're responsible for. In this list, there's probably, 20 items on there that aren't operational. So someone goes to push a button for a pedestrian crossing, they're never going to get one. Right. And I had reached out to Brian about one that I noticed, and I'm like, and he's like, "Why? It's going to be done in 2024." I'm like, "What do you mean it's going to be done in 2024? Put a bulb in it." I was just like, "Really?" But he said there's other things to it. There's more to it than just simply replacing a bulb. And then I asked him, I said, "How can we get it so bad that we have 11 intersections and we have 20 different problem areas in there?" And so my concern on it is we can't let it get that bad in the future. And Brian said that he'll keep more of an eye on it and they'll kind of be proactive rather than waiting. Because, we were just talking about how difficult it is as a pedestrian. So you go and you push a button and then nothing happens and you stand there and it's like, okay, I'm just going to run for it kind of thing. Or I don't know, I'm just going to go. And right, and we don't want people doing that. We want to make sure when they push a button, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when you push a button, when there is one and it does operate, it gives a little extra time because it knows a pedestrian is there. Is that correct? That it would keep a little extra time for that person to cross rather than if there was no button?
Yeah, it should, it all depends on how it's programmed. I mean, so it all depends on how many lanes that person's
Yeah, I
crossing.
suppose.
You know, ultimately, the different traffic loops that detect the cars, I mean, it's honestly a equation algorithm that controller is continually running through with all the inputs, and it continually runs it. And that's how it tells an intersection how to work. You know, and it'll always have its primary feed as to, you know, what carries the most importance. So say, you know, out on Oneida, generally, if there's no cars sitting at the side streets, when you go down Oneida should be all green lights, unless there's an input from the side streets that there is a car waiting. So it's all just little things like that us nerdy engineers think about. You know, when you're actually sitting, it's like, well, this thing doesn't work right. But the average user doesn't really pick up on that. So as much as I wish it was as easy as just unscrewing a light bulb, you know, there's load switches, relays. You open up the cabinets. I mean, it's not only just a little computer. That there's multiple components in it that run the entire signal. So.
And I'm not necessarily looking to make excuses for anything. Ultimately, this is a challenge that I think the village has faced for a number of years. This isn't a recent thing, like it didn't happen in the last 6 months or 12
No, and I'm
months.
not saying it.
No, and I think what really precipitated some of the changes that we're seeing operationally is recently the county, Brown County used to maintain through contract all of our traffic signals. Brown County has since relinquished that role because they can't staff it sufficiently to support all the municipalities. So then we were more or less forced to go out and find a different third party to help support and maintain the infrastructure that was necessary. And when we did that, it was then identified that the infrastructure had these issues. The components, all that stuff are obsolete. They're no longer replaceable. So now we have to replace the controllers. It really kind of was really a snowball effect.
Right.
Like, oh, we just have to find a new electrician more or less to maintain the system. Find a new electrician, well, we can't maintain this, and this because it's obsolete. All right. Now we got to find all these new components, and the whole systems are not in good working order. So what's the best method to do this? All right, let's be systematic about it. We know we only have so many years worth of parts available to us, so let's start looking to replace these things over the course of, it's really a 3-year program, if you will.
So when you do that, Brian, do you reach out to the other municipalities to see whose equipment they're using to see there's some commonality?
Yeah, absolutely.
For that purpose of being able to access.
Yep,
cars.
totally. So right now, you guys may not be aware, but we executed an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Green Bay to help us with our traffic signals. That was an intergovernmental agreement that was approved at the village board level. So right now, the city of Green Bay is willing to provide us with emergency services for, say, knockdowns or anything that is urgent that needs to be fixed, like now. With that, they said as time allows, they will, work on doing other routine maintenance. However, they have this very similar controllers that we have, and they're switching. They're switching to Econolite, which is the same company that the DOT uses under the approved products list. So that would be the same company that we would be looking to switch to, only due to the fact that so there is consistency. So when an electrician goes from Green Bay to Ashwaubenon, it's the same system. It's not, a mechanic that's generally working on a Ford that you tell he has to work on a Chevy. It's not that. It's consistent. So the DOT has been using Econolite since 2012 with very great success. So it's one of those things that we're looking to go that route. They are also quite a bit more fiscally responsible. A lot of the controllers now that TAPCO provides, you actually have to have a licensing software in order to run them every year. Econolite does not require that. So, yeah.
The razor blade sale.
Okay, I'm sorry, to make sure I understand. On that list, we were able to fix 2 things. The rest of the things are probably obsolete and just need a bigger look. And we know that because Brown County turned this back over to us. So all of the other, I don't think all that happened in 1 year, did it?
I'm sure it didn't. It's probably been
No.
many years
So
that
they
they
just
haven't
they
been.
weren't on it.
Well, they didn't.
Well,
So-
yeah, ultimately, so some of the stuff, I found a list from 2019, some of the stuff did happen way back in 2019. Ultimately, I don't know if there was a priority or if they did repair it and it failed again. Because some of the stuff that they're doing the repairs with is with used parts, because you can't get a new part because they are so old. So it's possible that they're replacing it with an old part and then that old part has now failed again. We really only have one intersection of our 11 intersections, that's at Cormier and Holmgren, that is, I would say, up to date. You know, similar to us seeing a vehicle that's been made in the last 8 to 10 years, we only have one intersection that's like that. Everything else we have is ancient. It'd be like seeing that 20 to 25-year-old vehicle going down the road that is rusted out and it's hard to get parts for. So that's where we are. I mean, it's not that we're unique. City of Green Bay is in the same spot, and the county is also in that similar spot. So as we begin to replace our equipment, we're going to start having the ability to kind of compile, we'll say, a graveyard of these parts, so that way as they continue to fail, you know, we'll work together between us, Brown County, and the City of Green Bay to kind of keep us on the road as long as possible. To redo an entire intersection, just the electronics, the computer side of things, is about $30,000. So if you were to take an entire intersection and you make it look like Cormier and Holmgren, you're about $225,000. So that's replacing all the poles, getting the push buttons where they should be. So it's not an easy endeavor, likely something that we would look to tackle when we do a full reconstruct of the road.
It's just, you remember, I'm new, I don't know about it, it's just
Yep.
fascinating to me. So nobody was,
It's new to us though too.
oh,
Yeah.
and nobody was calling the village saying, gosh, not one of these things at this
They didn't know.
intersection works. So
Probably didn't know.
Well, if you drive down the road and the light doesn't turn green, it stays red forever, someone
You're
calls
gonna
on that right away. If
Right.
it's a push button,
Yeah,
you know, and you just, there's no cars coming, I'm going, I'm not waiting for this.
you may not call or.
You may not call but so it's sort of a squeaky wheel gets the grease type of thing, so.
The sad part is with the technology and the AI, you could buy today and within 3 years, there's gonna be something so much better out there, but you don't have options like that.
Yeah, you're very right. I mean, even the intersection, I've been using Cormier and Holmgren as an example. I mean, it's already well out of date.
Yeah.
You know, it's 6 years old and you open it up and it's like, wow, you think of all the new stuff, you know, well, the new stuff's got all touch button screens. Well, nothing out there is touch button. You know, it's just, that's technology. That's
You hope
electronics.
like heck you can access parts even if it's only 4 or 5,
Right.
10 years old, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's.
And these things, I mean, they're living in the elements. I mean, those cabinets, they get hot. You know, they get super cold. You know, and you can put heaters in them, but when you put heaters in them, then you get mice, and then the mice eat the wires. So it's not an easy situation. They don't live in an easy environment. They see all the humidity that is out there, and we know that electronics don't like that. So of course they're designed for it, but it's not an easy life.
interesting.
We thought your life was easy before now.
It's only one small part of my job.
Yeah, exactly.
So the system does not include at all like cameras on an intersection, correct? That's a totally separate
Correct.
thing.
We only have one intersection that has cameras. That is, I'm going to draw a blank right now. I just can't think of the road name. So, what is the road that's?
Is it right down here on Willard or no?
No. So you have Golden Corral and the Mexican restaurant,
And
Or is it at the,
Plum Rock.
Oh,
Plum Rock. Sorry, it's not like a common road. So at Plum Rock and Holmgren, for whatever reason, there's cameras at that intersection.
Really?
I don't
All
know.
intersections, yeah.
why there?
Yeah.
I don't know. So there is cameras there to detect pedestrians. They're not on. They don't. I don't know why they don't work. It could just be that the actual photo eye that actually looks, you know, it's you know, a camera. And imagine if you were to never wash the windows on something, It could be that that's just too dirty. It could be that the screen and all the sensing components of it don't work. I don't know. I just know that it's off. And I have not ventured to turn it on because if I turn it on, it may flip the signal into flash because it doesn't know what to do.
Doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
So I just kind of don't open up the can of worms because it's kind of working the way it is. So hopefully when we go through and redo that intersection, we can either figure out what's wrong with it or look at a different option.
That's really, that's on this list. And I'm like, where's that road? Finbrook.
Yeah.
So I was struggling to think of the name.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not a Cormier. It's not a
Wow.
Willard.
So then what you're saying is we have no intersections with cameras.
Right now, we do not. Nope. Everything works off from loops that are under the pavement and push buttons, pedestrian push buttons. So,
And that's a shame for bicyclists.
and
Because
a
it will not
motorcycle
trigger for a
too,
bicycle or a motorist.
or moped. They don't.
Yeah, moped, yep, yeah, so you get up to the intersection.
Oh.
And if there's not a motor vehicle there,
It's not gonna-
it's never gonna trip for you,
Mhm.
which is bad. You know, they redid, let's see, Vanderpuren and Oneida wasn't redone, but that whole area was redone, and biking through there, you can't get that trip ever. And there's nobody usually coming from the east, so you just sit there, but legally, you can only have to wait 45 seconds.
I was gonna say, there's a
And
time
then
that you
can
don't
go.
have to wait, because I
And then
know
you can go, yep.
you can.
Most people don't know that though.
No, people don't know that. Most people might just run it anyway, but yeah. But it makes it more unsafe, I guess, for the
That's
bicyclists
what I
coming
do
up
on
there.
Main Street Bridge.
Yeah,
He's
Yeah.
gonna wait there forever too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then they got a hill, so you gotta make sure he's not flying over the hill.
Yeah. All right, thank you, Brian. So really in the future for this, this list here that you had sent to me, will this be done all in 2024? Is that budgeted in 2024, right?
Yeah, that's all budgeted happening in 2024. I mean, my hopes are is that we won't get a laundry list like that
Yeah,
anymore. We
yeah.
can just keep up on it annually.
Okay.
I had him compile that list. Every year you have to have a company go through and do conflict monitor testing. So there's a system that runs on top of the computer system that runs the intersection. It's called a conflict monitor. Make sure that it didn't give all four legs of the intersection all green. It's kind of a checks and balances, and we ultimately have a responsibility to have that conflict monitor reviewed annually. And when I had him review that conflict monitor, I also had him compile this list. So something that we'll stay in the run of either having TAPCO do or the city of Green Bay. We don't have the software here in order to do that in-house.
Okay. So yeah, so all these on here then will get done. It's budgeted for in 2024, so that would be good to get those taken care of. There's a lot of pedestrian buttons that aren't working.
That was good.
And with a lot more pedestrians moving around the community, you know, it's nice to have the buttons working properly. So thank you for doing that, Brian.
Yep.
The only other question I had, if no one else does, is the industrial park trail. I talked to Rex about this, like what the project was going to be, and you had said it's going to be pulverized and repave it. My question is that trail is kind of falling into the creek. Is that going to take care of that, or are we going to put a better shoulder on it, or what is the plan, or is that yet to be determined exactly how we're going to handle that?
Right, so we'll have to look at kind of on a case-by-case scenario. You know, of course, you can re-shoulder some of it, but with it being so close to a navigable stream, we'll only be able to do so much. And a majority of that is in an easement, so I don't know how much we may be able to pull the trail away from the waterway. But we're ultimately just gonna have to look at each spot to see what we can do to make it be better. I mean, all things
The current
considered.
stuff lasted for like 23 years. Was that a 2000 project, Tracy? Or before that?
I'm thinking probably around then, I think.
So, which isn't out of the ordinary,
No.
quite honestly. I mean,
No.
that's.
It did good considering its environment. I mean, it
Yeah.
has trees hanging over it, which
Yeah.
don't allow things to dry out, and it's right next to a waterway. So, I mean, my opinion is that by getting 23 years of it, we did really well. So, we'll see what we can do to try to make it better.
Make it another 23 years.
Yeah, no, totally.
Okay. Then the question again, I asked Rex about this, if you could check into the bollards, if those could be removed from the trail and look into it, the MUTCD. It's one of our only trails that does have bollards. Those are the big posts that sit in the middle of the trail at the crossings of roads. And my understanding is bollards aren't recommended anymore from MUTCD because of the danger for people hitting them. So if that's something you can check on and see if those can be removed from the trail, if MUTCD does call for those.
So we've had a little bit of an internal discussion with that, and I mean, it's just my opinion. I know what the standards are, but quite honestly, I think those bollards still help. There's a number of businesses that I feel, it's my own personal opinion, that were those bollards not there, they would be using that trail to access the backside of the business, which I think would be worse off. I know that only because I've seen vehicles and stuff literally parked right up next to the trail on some of that stuff, and I don't know. It's a catch-22 on some stuff,
Yeah.
but it does keep. Tracy, I'm going to say I have not heard of anybody who has had a conflict with the bollards, or they've run into them, where there's been concern. No one's at least called us on it. And I also know that I don't see vehicles driving down the trail, which is what I'm sure they were put in for initially.
Yeah, exactly.
Because of it. So
Right.
I don't know. I'm going to go counterpoint on that and say that it's working. The way.
Right. Well, I would ask that. Go ahead.
So there are two potential hazards. One is somebody's gonna hit the bollard.
Right.
Or the other potential hazard is there's gonna be a vehicle and cyclist pedestrian incident there. I guess from my standpoint, I would take the chances with the bollards rather than a car driving down that road or a truck or.
I just gotta say, there's been a lot of court cases recently. There's just one in the valley recently. Someone ran into a bollard, someone on their bike. I've seen a woman on a trail run into a bollard and get injured. So it is out there, and it is a risk for a bicyclist, because if people are biking and let's say one's following the other, this person is obstructing this person's view. They swing around the bollard, all of a sudden this one's eating it, hitting the bollard. So it is a hazard, and like I said, I believe, and I don't quote me on it, but I think that MUTC does not recommend them anymore. They originally recommended for the reason that Rex talked about. So I don't know if people are driving out there. I've never seen anybody, but that's just me. I've been out there. But I would just, I guess, respectfully request that we look into it a little further and see. We do not have bollards on any other trails in the village of Ashwaubenon. So again, it's a different design, and people get used to that. So then you have that too. And the bollards that we have are not marked well enough. At night, you can't see those things at all.
And we got them on the main avenue trail where it crosses onto the industrial park. And we've got them on the corner of Packerland in Maine on the southeast corner. There's a bollard there as well.
All right. Well, I guess just maybe look into it and see what you think.
Yeah, maybe a discussion.
I have concerns.
Because the
about
other
them.
thing is, it is kind of an indicator that there's an intersection
There is.
that you need to be careful, because do we have stop signs there? They're probably above.
They're smaller, yeah, and some of the
So, I mean,
intersections.
there's another.
We also have one on the Ashwaubenon River, or Ashwaubenon River Trail, where we replaced that sign.
Yeah, no.
And some of us lazy people, we use them poles to hold us up instead of getting on the bike when we know vehicles. are coming.
Yeah, because you're clipped in, yeah.
Yeah, just kind
Yeah.
of, just saying.
The other thing that if we could check into, we did have the curbs painted yellow on the crossings throughout of that trail. But at Parkview, where that detail shop is, I don't know if anyone else knows, but they park their trucks outside of the yellow zone, but you cannot see anything coming out. If you're going southbound on the trail and you're looking to the east by that detail shop, so it's on the corner of Parkview and the trail, you literally cannot see anything coming from the east, and someone's gonna get picked off. So I think it'd be good to extend that yellow further down, like right across their property, because they're parking those big tow trucks there, and you, like I said, you cannot see them. You have to inch out, and otherwise you're gonna have a situation like Scott said, where someone's just gonna go through and they're gonna get picked off because the motor vehicle driver won't see them, and the person at entering Parkview and the trail, right where that detail shop, it's a tow truck company. I mean, we do have some yellow there, but I think it just needs to go way past their property because they park their big tow trucks.
Yeah,
And you still can't see.
Their lot's always filled with cars. that
Right,
are
because they have so many
damaged.
cars that,
Yep.
yeah, people aren't picking up their cars anymore and just leaving them there, so. So if that's something we can look into too and see about maybe striking the yellowing down further, because it really is a hazard to see at that particular intersection.
We take a look at the map on that?
Yeah.
While we're here.
It's the first one, south of Wabi, I believe. Yeah. And it's, there's a driveway, I think, so it's yellow between the trail and maybe the driveway to that little piece. But the tow trucks sit where that 1236 is.
That's one of the places that I would be concerned about their cars driving on. That's the one that literally
I-
have
and
their
I-
cars on the trail.
Yeah, and they used to park way over, yeah.
They're not,
I did
they're
talk,
not good citizens.
yeah, well, and I did talk to him one day because they actually had one of their tow trucks blocking the entire access from the trail to the road one day. And I was like, oh, this is good. You could literally get off the trail into the road. So then I walked into their business and talked to him about it. It was parked right there, basically.
Yeah.
But even where those cars are
Looks
parked,
like they're blocking the hydrant.
oh, is there hydrant? Oh, yeah, there is. I didn't see that.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Can you give them a citation for Google Street View?
I can complain on it.
I mean, if they could stay back past that hydrant, you probably could see better, but when they're parked like where those cars are and they're the big tow trucks, you can't see anything. It's way too close.
No, and those cars in their lot even, I mean, they're backed up almost
Yeah, I
all-
mean,
sometimes. They got
yeah.
so many cars in there, it's
They do.
crazy.
Well, he was telling me that, especially during the pandemic, people were just abandoning their cars. They would take their insurance off the car, they'd get in a crash and they're like, I'm not taking it anymore, it's yours. And so they had tons of cars sitting in there, and there still is a ton. I mean, when I went by the other day, it was a ton. But, I don't know, but coming out the other way, it doesn't seem as bad. They sometimes park further maybe to the west, but back far enough. And this was obviously before the paint was put in, but there is paint there now on the curbs.
Yeah, I think we could probably pull the paint back a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, like I said, it's very hard to see. Thank you. All right, any other questions on any of the projects, you guys? I'm sorry that I ran down on that.
That's why we're here.
Otherwise, like I said, it was nice to see that a lot of good projects
Yeah.
that are going forward, and it's exciting that we're looking at bike and ped stuff, and I appreciate the staff bringing it to us for our input and moving it forward, so. And that's just informational, correct? On
Yep.
that? Okay. All right, if any other questions about 8B was consider, discuss, action. Lombardi Access Road area, pedestrian accommodations. This we did talk about at our October meeting, I think.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
and we made a recommendation which went forward, and I just really wanted to get an update on it, Brian, where we're at, because you had mentioned, it's kind of moving along, so if you could update us on that, that would be great.
So we had two different meetings with the Titletown group and the Packers. Really nothing too major changed. I'll just kind of start from the west end. We do have no, you're good.
Trying to make it full screen.
No, you're good. So we do have the mid-block crossing that goes onto the south side of Lombardi Access Road. You can see that in red here. So right here is Argonne, right here is Cabela's, Metro Mart. So essentially you'll have an 8-foot wide sidewalk on the south side of the access road, 5-foot wide terrace. As you go east and you get to the intersection of Marley and the Lombardi Access Road, you'll be able to cross north and get up to the current crosswalk that's already existing up here in the south leg of Lombardi and Marley.
And that's lights there, correct?
That's lights there, and there is push
Push
buttons and everything's
Do they
already
work?
there.
Can you-
I don't know. That's a county intersection.
Oh,
So those I don't know about.
Okay.
With that, Joel, I don't know if you can. There's other attachments.
So there will be an RFP on this intersection right there, correct?
Yep.
And is there one on the south part of Argonne? Where if we continue south, there's not?
We didn't
just-
plan to
okay.
because at that point in time the vehicles are slowing down and there's less vehicles because majority of them do end up going into Cabela's. So, Joel, I don't know. Yep, that one would be awesome. Okay, so bringing you back to this intersection here at Marley. So you can go to the north and then head across to the east using the current crosswalk that's there, or you can go south. And you guys may recall, we had talked about putting a mid-block crossing here going into Titletown to get up into the podium. After conversations with the Titletown group and the Packers, their desire or interest was not to have the crosswalk here, only due to the fact of the impacts of the vehicles when they're leaving. They had asked that we actually run this a little bit further south and then cross there, which then they would put pedestrian accommodations going across to get up into the podium. Along with that, they had interest in actually running sidewalk on the east side of Marley, tying into the existing sidewalk that's on Brookwood. So it does kind of flip flop. The right of way is tight there, but they said that they would be willing to work with us in order to grant us a permanent easement to get that sidewalk in. So.
And will be RFBs at that mid-block there on
Correct.
Marley? Okay.
Yep. So there'll be a rapid flashing beacon there. There will not be at these two crosswalks as they're at a standard intersection. That's kind of normal for conflict points and people crossing. So.
There's, stop condition there.
Correct. With that.
So then the sidewalk will not continue from the mid-block crossing down to Brook?
Not on the west side,
Not on the west side,
just
it'll
on the
just be
east
on the
side.
east side. And then on Argonne Street, where Brookdale goes,
Brookwood, yeah.
Brookwood goes, there would not be a sidewalk heading up Argonne on the east side, correct?
No.
Where the new Discovery
Greater
Green
Green
Bay
Bay.
is.
Yep. No. So there is on the west side, there's sidewalk currently,
Yeah.
but we do not have intentions. You can see where the right of way is currently. The right of way is nearly right on the back of the curb. So the right of way is in red.
Yep. Okay.
We don't have those.
However, there is sidewalk here.
How big are the lanes going to be on the access road? Did they go at 10 feet, 12 feet? Vehicle lanes?
Yep, the vehicle lanes are two 12-foot lanes.
And then a 5-foot terrace, you said, and an 8-foot sidewalk. And
Correct.
then does it become a regular sidewalk when it gets to Marley?
When you get to Marley, it does skinny up to 6 feet because we run out of right of way. So
I'm excited that it's gonna be 8 feet because that will allow like multiple people abreast, which is what you're hoping for to eliminate some of the issues with people coming to and from events.
right. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see in this drawing just because it is, but it starts tapering right at this point from 8 feet down to 6. And that's unfortunately, we had spoken with the property owner there, not interested in selling us any right away. So we did what we could with the right away that we had.
And then there'll be a standard sidewalk when you get to the east side of a Packer property. That'll be your standard 6-footer again.
Yeah, so this will be 6 feet all the way through here.
Okay. And then
Once it, yep. So this will actually be 5-foot walk, but once you get down here in Titletown, I think that's either 8 or a 10-foot walk. Joel, yes. So here you can see it gets wide again.
We're limited for right away at Brookwood as well as you head further west.
We are.
As you get to Marley.
And putting sidewalk adjacent to the back of curb, especially in Wisconsin, is like the least desirable thing to do, but
Yeah.
we're doing what we can with the space that we have. Only because you don't have any space for snow storage, and when the plows throw the wet, heavy snow up onto the sidewalk, then you have to throw it again. But we're doing what we can with what we have. So
Does Brookwood have a terrace? It looks like 5-foot terrace
5-foot
also.
terrace. Yep, which allows for snow storage, and we are gonna have to relocate quite a few utilities into that area. There's about a dozen street trees that are also having to come down to allow for it. So
Hopefully they're ash. Probably not.
I don't think they
Probably
are.
not, because they've already been
Those are
through
gone
there.
Yeah, these streets here, I don't know what they are, but they look like healthy.
Calorie parasites.
Get rid of them. So this will go to village board, is that correct?
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night for final approval, and Ayers is the contractor, the
Yep.
consulting engineering firm
Yep.
on it?
So we're hoping to have a public informational meeting on January 10th, just to get all the property owners up to speed with our project scope and see if there's any major red flags or concerns that they may have. But the biggest thing for this is going to be just the staging, because obviously these property owners are going to be impacted on both sides. So we'll have to kind of have it be a staged construction where we focus on the front and then maybe head towards the back and get the work done back there.
Did you talk to, or did anybody talk to Discover Green Bay at all and see what their desire is, maybe to have, because there's no sidewalk on their property, if they would be willing to help out or put a sidewalk in from Brookwood up to their driveway or something, just to
So
get-
they don't own the property,
Who does, us?
the Packers own it.
Oh,
So,
shoot.
yep.
I was wondering if they had extra money from their project, that they would say, okay, let's put the sidewalk in there. Because it's unfortunate there's not a sidewalk there,
Mhm.
because it really, especially in the winter months, deters easy access to their facility, by foot across the street and then come back. And it's a nightmare coming across that, where their driveway is to their facility and across from Cabela's. That's like 3 or 4 big lanes there, so that's hard to get across. All right.
Any other questions?
Good.
All right.
Thank you for the
Yeah.
update.
No problem.
And thanks for bringing it back.
Yep.
All right, item 8C, consider discuss act regarding the village, requesting the village submit an application to the League of American Bicyclists for bicycle-friendly community designation. And I am going to recuse myself on this discussion, so maybe Dale, if you can run this section of the agenda meeting for me, please. Since our vice chair is gone, Jessica's not here, so I can't pick Dale. He's right across from me.
Well, while Dale contemplates his life
Yes.
decisions.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll give a brief update on that, which obviously for Sharon and Kim, we as a committee have been contemplating and kind of reviewing on a very high level the submission of an application to the Bicycle Friendly Communities Program to be designated as a bike-friendly community. As you probably are aware, based on the packet that you have, it's a 94 5-page application, so it's pretty cumbersome. And up until probably the last 6 or so months, the committee has kind of been reviewing a little bit of each section as we go along and identifying areas that we think we meet the obligations, and then areas where we may fall short. In fact, the city of Green Bay has received I think they've received the bronze standard, if I'm not mistaken, for this designation, but there was quite a bit of effort that they had put in over the course of years to kind of meet that, because they had applied before and had gotten the designation, and then they had done some things and eventually received the designation. So one of the concerns that we have from staff's perspective is, unlike the city of Green Bay, we do not have a lot of the data in hand to be able to complete the application that's required under some of the questions. So there's a lot of data that's required as far as lane miles, where they're located, mapping, things of that nature. It would require us to go out and collect field data and then implement it into our GIS system. So that will take some time. It's not that we're not capable of doing it, we are. It's just a matter of prioritizing that if that's really the desire. So one of the things that we as staff have kind of pressed the committee on is that if this is a priority for the committee, then we would want to put a recommendation forward to the village board that then say, okay, this is a priority for us as a community, as an organization, staff, go ahead and get it done. So that's really kind of the next step that the committee wants to see us apply for this. As a village, put forth that recommendation, goes to the village board says, yes, staff, this is important to us, let's see it through. Again, we've gone through the sections. It is a pretty comprehensive application. When we initially started looking at it, the application periods were twice per year. So they had one, I believe, in the spring and one in the fall or winter. They have now, since this past year, gone through and revised that. So it's one submission per year. And the submission date is the end of June. So in 2024, it would be June 25th is the date for submission. So if you had a chance to go through your packet and look at that questionnaire, all that information would need to be collected and submitted by the end of June, more or less. Which again, much of it is just kind of yes or no answers. Some of it's demographic information, that's fine. It's more the field collection, the data collection that we would need. That would take some time because we would need to send some people out, start using our GIS and start collecting data as far as how many bike lanes we have, where they're located, how many miles are there. We have to decide whether or not the shared use lanes that the village has been very prominent in putting out, if those qualify as bike lanes, probably not. So it's just, there's a lot there. So at the end of the day, that's kind of where we sit as staff. With that being said, I think from a staff perspective and upon going through the packet with the committee over several months, a few months back, I personally don't feel confident that we're going to receive a designation. There's a number of things that we really, quite honestly, fall short on. So from my perspective, I think it would be better served for us to focus on the areas that we think are a priority for the community and work towards those things. And then if we feel like over time we've really kind of started to cross off elements of the application, we feel confident that we're going to actually get something fruitful out of it, then I think we should apply. But at this point, I think we know, I think, after looking at the application, where we're falling short. And I think it's just a matter of what are our priorities from that point forward. So that's where we're at. So I guess if the committee feels strongly, I would recommend putting forth a recommendation for the board. If the committee is like, let's just keep working on it through our bike and ped plan, let's keep accomplishing things through our projects. Maybe let's focus on education because we know that's going to be an area where we may be falling short in. Then we can put together an action plan to kind of tackle some of those elements.
So Kim and Sharon, you probably weren't here. We had, what was her name from Green Bay that put their
Stephanie.
I think she was good enough to come to a meeting, and they had a lot of support bodies to help put it together, which we don't have here, if I remember correctly. So then we went back at it, we started looking at it correctly, to your point. And I think in fairness, you can read this. It's not more than intensive. It's like, wow, that's a lot to become, but I'm sure there's a purpose behind that to become approved, right? There's a reason for it. And you'll find that there's not many places that are approved throughout the country. There are some, and they'll give, if you go online, it'll give you a list of who they are. Madison, I believe, is on there, and you get rated.
I think there's 3 or 4 Wisconsin communities that
Yeah.
have some type of designation.
So I don't think this is my own opinion. I don't think we don't want to do it, but I do think there's no way I could see this happening by June. I don't visualize that even happening. So we have time. So I would think it would be valuable for you to at least take some time and look at it don't try to read everything because it's going to be overwhelming. But it'll give you a general idea of what, especially with your background. But I mean, if you're going after grants, this can't be. You're probably used to all this.
And I remember when Green Bay was doing this. So first we decide whether or not we ever achieve the designation, whether we want to use that as like a benchmark for us, right? If we're gonna accept what they define as a bike-friendly community and try to build up the components, right? Because you're saying there's gaps in that, so we have to decide if we want to fill those in as measurable progress for this. Okay.
And that was part of it. Do we want to try to do that ahead, use this as a template
Right.
moving forward to try to accomplish that before we actually do an application? Because we are lacking in many areas of that.
It seems like that
requirement.
needs its own discussion. Almost a shared understanding of what those components are, where we are on each of them, and if the time and energy put into it, what the return on that is. Do I think this is Ashwaubenon's brand? Yes. I think it's Ashwaubenon's brand to be a bike-friendly community. I don't know about the juice and the squeeze and all of that.
You know, from my standpoint, if we've identified areas we don't meet their standards, if we just take a look at those, not as a whole, but individually and say, does this make sense for us to do this? Is this going to benefit the village? Is this going to make it safer? Is it going to be more pleasant? And then just look at those individual pieces and decide, outside of the grant or outside of the designation, is this a good thing for us to try to do? You know, and certainly a designation would be a feather in the cap of the village. But even if we don't do the designation, is this something that's going to make the village safer, more bike friendly, easier to get around? To me, that's that's more important than getting the designation.
And then we have other opinions. But I think, and personally, I'm with you. I think, and just what you said, I think we need to take it a piece at a time, understand it, because there's no way I could look at this and say, yeah, I'm all for this. We haven't had enough time to do that. We've talked about this a number of times now. I just don't see where, first of all, number one, we're not going to make June. There's no way. So we have time to do that. And to me, it's like, let's not eat the elephant. Let's take a piece. I think we talked about that at the beginning. Let's take a certain sections, and you went through some of it, Joel, if you remember correctly. But let's, as a committee, decide, what do we want to take on? Do we want to take on the first 5 pages, 10 pages, and really, rather than try to read this whole thing and then work on those and see where are we at versus what the requirement is? And to your point, Kyle, is it worthwhile, and what are the economics of getting there? Both for safety as well as for the village itself. What do we gain by doing that? So I like the way Kim kind of laid it out, and that's probably from experience, but you're absolutely right. So I always tell you, I come from Cummins, and we were Six Sigma. You couldn't do anything without data. You couldn't be a manager without a Six Sigma black belt. You didn't have a position, right? And it was, so you kept the emotions out of the decision. And you also understood what that decision did to something else besides what you want to change. Because it can have an effect down the road, or it could have an effect immediately to something else in your business. So
I think that's what we need to do, is break it down and figure out what's right and what's wrong, and based on the data that they're looking for and the data that we have available today. And if we don't have it, what's it gonna take to get that data to satisfy the application? I'm not against doing the application, absolutely not. It's how do we approach getting there if we can get there? But with not being able to do it, and again, there's no way we're gonna do this by June. It gives us time to try to take a piece at a time, and that, I think as we get into it, we'll learn whether we wanna do this or not.
Well, I think we've attempted to do that, and I think we did kind of we went through the entire engineering section, we talked about the education section. The encouragement was kind of like, that's where we kind of got bogged down a little bit. So we've gone through it. Here's just an example of one of the questions that I think from a staff perspective, we get stuck on because it's truly a policy decision. So this is under the engineering section. And the question is, has your community taken any of the following steps to increase accessibility and equitable distribution of end-of-trip facilities, including bike parking? Let me ask you this, how many times has this committee really focused, and I know individuals may have, but how many times has this committee really focused on bike parking? How many times have we talked about end-of-trip facilities? We haven't even talked about like the infrastructure, much less the distribution of those equitably across different demographics in the community. Those are the detailed type questions that the application is asking for. It's really hard to answer that when we're not even talking about the facility itself, much less the equitable distribution of the facility based on demographics.
I'm gonna venture that a lot of us don't know what an end.
That's what I mean, right?
Or what does that even mean?
Seems like it would be a bathroom.
Parking, bathrooms, maybe a bike repair station, a water filling station, all that stuff. But that's my point is, I think we're so early in our stage of developing a community that supports bicycling, not only from a recreational standpoint, but from a transportation standpoint. I still like to view myself or consider myself to be somewhat of an outsider, and when I think of Ashwaubenon from a bicycling standpoint, it's for recreational purposes versus transportation purposes. And what I mean by that is that we will put bicycle facilities in locations that are convenient, but we don't necessarily force the conversation into all points of transportation. And I think that's where this application really gets into that conversation, is that it's not just for leisure purposes, but it's for all purposes, all mobility and modality. And that's where there's substantial changes in mindset in this community that maybe isn't necessarily here at this committee level, because I think you're all passionate about it. But I don't know that those same visions or viewpoints are shared by the entire members of the board, much less the constituents they represent. So there's a lot of, if you think about it, if you were going to put bike lanes on every arterial collector street in this community, that's probably, I'll be honest with you, it's probably not going to happen. I think there'll be enough political pushback from the constituents in this community. It's not going to happen. So if we can't even accommodate bicyclists safely on all major roadways that have higher traffic volumes or higher rates of speed, are you going to be able to convince the constituents of this community that we need to have an end-of-trip facility in this location because there are disadvantaged youth that can't fix their bike tire, and that's why we're going to have it there? I'm just going to be honest. I don't see that happening. So you got to figure out what is the lowest hanging fruit and kind of work off from that, in my opinion.
In my view of Ashwaubenon, and looking back, it's always been, what's the best way to move cars? The overall arching decisions, always, what's the best way to move cars? And that's why United Street is as wide as it is. That's why we have a mall of big parking spaces. That was a designation. People are going to drive here. You know, we built all those things before we did anything else. So always been, how do we move cars has always been the first criteria, the first decision. And I think to achieve this, we have to, as you say, find a new way of thinking. That's why the village doesn't have sidewalks. Because people didn't want to have sidewalks. Well, it's not a good place to walk. You're gonna just drive. You know, to put a sidewalk in, you know, we talked a couple of years ago about putting a sidewalk on the other side of Cormier Road, and I don't know if anything has happened other than that survey that we sent out. And so I think that's always been the mindset of the village and the leadership as a whole, and whatever that may be, is what's the best way to move cars and make the roads good for cars. And we have to start slowly changing, how can we accommodate pedestrians, how can we accommodate cyclists. You know, you guys are doing a good job, the police department is doing a good job by patrolling crosswalks more and more speed, and you know, the engineering is putting the flashing lights at dangerous intersections. Those are all small steps, but we just have to concentrate on getting to a better place than we are now.
Do you find though, and I can't remember all the places, Tracy, but Madison comes to mind because my kids went there, but the college drives that. Yeah. There's no question about it. When you got 40,000, 60,000 kids, you know, you're going to drive because they bicycle, probably scooter now. But back then it was bicycles. So it drove Madison to do what they're doing. It wasn't the public. I don't think it was the normal. I really don't. I could be wrong, but I doubt it. Because when you're in a university the size of that, they needed transportation and they didn't have places to park cars. You could put your bicycle in your apartment if you had to, right? Or they do. I shouldn't say they did. They do, right? But we also want to do better. So how do we get there? And I still, when I read this, there's a lot of good things in here to use as a template for us to start making changes based on us as a committee and convince others that it's the right thing to do.
Well, in order to be legitimate, we're the Bike and Ped Committee. I think we have to at least consider this document, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's in the name of what we're doing, and it's both of what you're talking about almost leads back to the Holmgren way thing that has been proposed along the way. How do you build a shared understanding in your constituents, in the community? What is the leading? What is the educating? And I do think it needs a big runway for this. Rex, did you put in that beautiful bike, whatever it is, in Ashwaubenon?
Yeah, the tire.
That's really,
That's
yes,
nice.
is that sort of what we're talking about
Destination
here?
stuff.
Yeah, that's nice.
But I mean, it's not much. It's just a bike pump thing and a little
Really
bike fix
nice.
thing. And
Yep, yep.
some seats.
But that's the type of things we're talking about,
Yeah.
those type of installations.
But I think the other thing, Kim, and you pointed out, constituents are going to change. That's all us older people that don't leave are going to leave whether they want to, and then there will be younger people in here. And the demographic, the village will change. It will, because the younger generation does things different than we do, and bicycling is a big part of it, and walking and being physical and all that good stuff. It just is. So as a village, you need to be prepared to change as well. And the board's going to change too over time. So I think leadership's important, and that's what our job is. So you're right. You have to consider this. You're a bicycle and pedestrian committee.
So one of the things I did not send to the group, but I certainly can, is they have kind of a quick assessment, if you will. So it's not the 94-page application, but there's 4 or 5, maybe 6 questions per category: engineering, education, encouragement. And it's basically a yes or no question. So as we're going through it, you answer the questions no. Those are all required components of the application. Generally speaking, we kind of fit that no category, but my recommendation would be, let's start with that. So as an example, does your community have a comprehensive, connected, and well-maintained, low-stress bicycle network? Yes or no? I would probably argue no. We have locations, but are they connected? No. So that's an emphasis for this group, right? If we start there and we build from that, then we get into the details and the nitty gritty of, is it equitable, is it distributed well? You know, we can get into that, that's fine. They talk about bike parking. Another one that's a yes or no that's required. Does your community work with neighboring communities or the larger region to plan and discuss bike projects? To some degree, yes, right? Ashwaubenon is a good example when we're doing that.
We work with the county too.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had conversations with the county. Yeah.
Could coordination be maybe a little bit better? Sure, right? Yeah, like how do we connect to the pier? How do we connect to Green Bay, with Lombardi?
We propose stuff the whole.
We propose stuff all the time. It doesn't,
Whether or not
that shouldn't be weighted against us, right?
No.
You know, as another, as we get into the encouragement section, are there policies or programs in place to incentivize and normalize bicycling? So so think about it from a committee standpoint, what can we do to help do that, right? We do a lot as an organization, as a community to encourage that. Wello's out there kind of advocating on behalf of the greater community. Could they be more engaged in Ashwaubenon? Is there something that we can do? So those are like the big hanging fruit. In my opinion, if we can go through that quick assessment and work towards trying to find ways to get yeses to those easy answers, then in my opinion, I think we're on the right path to eventually being designated as that community. And to me, then that makes sense to apply, because I think we can answer the basic questions as to yes or no. The detailed questions, the real interesting ones about equity and distribution and stuff like that, and that becomes more focused and tailored conversation.
That sounds like a good access ramp conversation.
What do they actually call it, Joel? What is it?
It's just called the quick assessment for the.
So
the
somebody.
So I can email it out to the
Yeah,
group.
then asks, what's the motion, or do we just wonder, we want to save this and bring it up again? Yeah, I think maybe that's what we do, but if you would send that out in the meantime, Joel, that'd be good, because that'll give you, Sharon and Kim, an opportunity to at least view it anyways, don't.
And not to be a total negative Nancy, there are sections in there that you definitely can answer yes. There are communities that don't have an active bike and pedal plan. We do. You have a comprehensive bike ped plan. Those are all, there's certain check marks that are definitely a yes. So it's not necessarily all negative, but there's definitely areas for work, right? Yep. And then I think Kenny pointed to it that this committee is a group of advocates for bicycle and pedestrians. You have a group of constituents in the community that may not feel as strongly as you do in relation to those elements. And we ultimately have to be able to convince the elected body too that we're going to make substantial policy changes in the village. So we have to build an adequate coalition to address those changes. Because as you mentioned, Kyle, there's not sidewalks everywhere in the village for a reason, right? There was this strong emphasis for a long time that cars dominate. And again, that changes. I mean, everybody's mentioned that, but that's going to require this committee to be a little bit of an advocate for those changes, but prudently to make sure that they actually happen.
Yeah, I think it's positive. I mean, I think about us, Tracy, and I look at this projects list.
Yeah.
And I go,
It's huge.
wow.
Yeah.
I mean, with the help of all you,
Yep.
we actually did something
Things in there.
that's
Yeah.
valuable,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And that's,
Yep.
there's some
That's the
things you
next
don't
year.
get approved.
That's just
Yeah.
the next year, yeah. So
Well,
that's
I had somebody tell me once, you don't know what you don't know. And it's like, if you could show us that list, but, well, we didn't even realize this stuff was important, just like the push buttons. We didn't know they didn't work. We didn't know, it just, that's something you never really think about until it's a problem or until, once you start looking at it, then you can start to see the detail. Well, we can change this, or this makes sense.
Yep. That's why I don't want to give up on it. I'm just saying, let's work towards it. Because there's things on here we worked
Oh, wow, what's that motion then?
Yeah.
I think we're gonna motion to put it on the agenda for, do we have to do that even, or just put it on the agenda? Motion to have the quick assessment, bicycle-friendly quick assessment application be brought to the January meeting for review and discussion.
Sure, sounds good.
I'll second it.
Here's your motion, your
Sure.
second.
Kelly, you got that?
Yes, I do.
Perfect.
I have to vote on it.
Oh, yeah, with the
All
vote
in
on it.
favor? Aye.
All right.
I'm not safe. Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Good job.
Yeah, wow.
I screwed up too, and I'd like to backtrack to 7B. I totally skipped over it. I'm sorry, Joe. I just wanted an update on the it's a comprehensive bicycle and pedestrian plan update. Where we're at on that and kind of the process. We talked about that. If you guys remember, I don't know, it's been several months since we discussed stepping forward and redoing our bicycle and pedestrian plan. And Joel kind of went through where we're at right now. So.
Yeah, I think it was June this past year, we had Cole here, and we were kind of walking through the Holmgren Way review, and then we talked briefly with him as well about the county's planning department being able to help assist us in drafting or amending or updating our comprehensive bike and ped plan, of which Cole had mentioned that yes, the Brown County Planning Department would be very interested and more than capable of helping us with that. Through the Metropolitan Planning Organization, or MPO, they would be able to do that free of charge for the village. But it was recommended by Cole and Aaron Schutte, our Community Development Director, to hold off on our efforts to update the bike and ped plan until after the comprehensive plan of the village has been updated. If you're unfamiliar with that, the village is required under statutory law to have a comprehensive land use plan that needs to be updated every so many years. We are at that phase in our current comp plan where we need to update it. There are 9 sections to that comp plan. One of those 9 sections relates to transportation. So it's important to look at it more big picture globally at a 30,000 foot level. And once the comp plan is done, then we take that transportation section and we break it down into further smaller steps, if you will, within our bike and ped plan. We are currently updating our comprehensive plan, or going through that process. In fact, we just initiated that effort last month by approving there's a public participation component in that. The village board approved that process. And so Aaron will be going through and working towards updating the comp plan over the course of 2024, with the completion of that probably later 2024, first part of 2025. In talking with Cole, what we can do is we can notify Cole in preferably June or July of this year that we would like the MPO to assist us in updating our bike and ped plan. It goes on his schedule then, and then in 2025 we can immediately go into updating our plan. So that was our intent, staff-wise, is just kind of see how the half year goes. Hopefully we're making good progress on our comp plan. We can still get on Cole's schedule right away, even if we don't start working on our plan until, let's say, end of first quarter, second quarter of 2025. We're still on his schedule to complete in 2025.
I'm unfamiliar with the plan and the specifics. When you talk about a transportation component, is there a benefit, or at least a role that the bike and ped should play in inputting to when the village board starts discussing that transportation?
Absolutely. So as that chapter gets drafted, the intent would be to bring that through a variety of different committees, whether that be planning commission, but bike and ped as well, because there is paragraphs or sections within that chapter that delve into bicycle, pedestrian, multimodal transportation options in the village, talk about mass transit, things of that nature. So I think it would be important for this group to be engaged in that conversation. At some point, there will be maps that are derived as well that will take into consideration the network of transportation options that are available in the village. And again, I think that will be very important for this committee to be engaged in as well.
So really, our timeline for us to know to get the bicycle and pedestrian plan going is maybe our meeting in June of 2024 to make them recommendations to go ahead and have Brown County put it, work with them. So we're really stating that we want to work with Brown County rather than go out for requests for proposals with it. I mean, they do it for free and.
Yeah, exactly.
do that.
And they, ultimately, our plan should be complementary. This kind of ties into that like friendly community application of working well with your neighboring community aspect. Our plan should complement or be in concert with the county's bike and ped plan, other surrounding land uses, since they do bike and ped plans for virtually every community around us. It really makes sense. It's an efficient use of time.
Yeah. All right, so then our June meeting of next year already. We should make sure we have that on the agenda.
It will come faster than.
Okay, yeah. And put on the agenda for us to make recommendation to reach out to our county and put us on their planning list for 2025 then.
Yeah, correct.
Because then they'll have to go through the MPO to get money. Is that what they do?
Well, the NPO has allocations, and so they have their allocation. It's a matter of how they're going to divide the allocation amongst the applicants that submit to them for planning purposes.
Okay.
So the earlier the better, of course. I don't know that I would recommend going in January or February, but May or June, if we put that recommendation, and I think that is certainly sufficient for them.
Okay. Thanks for the update. Any other questions on that? Otherwise, we'll plan on bringing it back and probably put on a list for maybe June, bring it back to us for a formal recommendation to work with Brown County. And then we probably start the plan in 2025 sometime, once comp plan and everything else is done. All right, thank you. Sorry for missing that one. I knew it was on here.
I was going to come back to
Where did it go? I know, where did it go? Oh, shoot. You should have just yelled. All right. No other agenda items. Any items for next agenda that anybody has? I just have a couple. I don't know if that bus stop on Anderson that gentleman just spoke of, if that we want to put back on the agenda next month. If we have some information for that and want to discuss that. Maybe just.
I think that would be appropriate. I would even venture that it might be appropriate to ask someone from the school district.
That's what I was thinking. We can maybe reach out
to
Dirk and see, because he evidently spoke to the gentleman and has some concerns about it too. So maybe if he could attend, that's a good idea, Rex. I don't know where we're at on Holmgren Way, but steps forward on Holmgren Way, the Smart Streets information that Cole had gone through with us, the roadway reconfiguration project, if that we should put on our next meeting agenda, see where we're at on that. I did have a request from a resident. I told them they need to get I asked them to do a letter for bike lanes on South Point from the city of Green Bay down to the new Quick Trip, or down even to 172. If we could establish bike lanes, I asked them to put a request together. They live up in kind of your neighborhood, and I reached out. So if they get a letter to me, then maybe we could put that on the agenda in January. And then if we could maybe revisit the Parkview bike lane additions with the Bellin opening, I had noticed, and they're not open yet, but I think there's just gonna be a lot more traffic in that area. And also I'm concerned about people parking on Parkview and starting to make that, because it is a bike access point between De Pere and Ashwaubenon that a lot of people use. And I'm just concerned about more traffic, more parking, and if we're going to look at the parking in that area at all when that one does open. So those are the ones that I had. Does anybody have anything else that they would like? Do you want to put anything with the bicycle friendly that's on there, correct?
Right. Yeah. Yes.
Just the quick assessment.
I'm not sure if we'll have it ready yet or not, but if we do, we'll bring forward some conversation on the e-bikes and the scooters.
Okay. All right. Anything else, anybody? That's a lot already. And like somewhat, maybe the resident won't get back to me on what's left on. I won't do that, right? But if you have anything else, please, yeah. Okay. Then our next meeting is January 8th. And everybody have a good Christmas and holiday season. And then I welcome a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. I gotta get drink water.
Yeah. Motion by Dale. Second Sharon, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, everybody, and again, have happy holiday. And please stay, Sharon, this customer, okay? Oh, they are. Of course.
Have a little pointed,
No.
use your pen maybe.
Oh, got it. Like I do to all my presents. It's like, that's half the phone. Just got right now. Oh, got it. Okay. Oh, there you go. Everybody grab one.